I've been living in the history of Thai-Myanmar relationship since childhood. First is the history textbook, especially about the warfares between Thailand and Myanmar of the past. Second is the living evidences of the relationship. The old capital of Ayutthaya and the present capital of Thailand, Bangkok. And before that, the capital city of Thonburi on the opposite side of Bangkok, on the other side of the Chao Phraya River. And both cities, Thonburi and Bangkok, are the legacies of the Thai-Myanmar relationship to this very present day and for the years to come. Then when I finished my high school education at St. Joseph College, Darjeeling, West Bengal, India, about 60 years ago. And many of my friends were coming from Myanmar. And to this very day, we still keep in touch. And our school reunion took place in Vietnam just a couple of months ago. And amongst all about, I think, 100 former students of St. Joseph, about almost 20 of them came from Myanmar, not directly from Myanmar, but from Canada, Australia, the United States, England, and so on. And quite a few of them were of the Indian and ethnic minorities, and they had to leave Myanmar in the 1962. And throughout my diplomatic career, I had to deal on and off with the Thai-Myanmar relations. And I also had to deal with Myanmar in the context of the ASEAN community, which for quite some time, I was a desk officer and then foreign minister and so on. So I have that affinity, closeness, you know, also to a certain extent, sense of belonging and ownership of what was going on in Myanmar. I could not forget the fact that many of my Burmese friends had to leave Myanmar for political reasons and so on. And it stuck into my heart and my mind. And so my intention all along to see the betterment and advancement of Myanmar and to do whatever I can to help that process, you know, of democratization, of development, of dignity in the eyes of the international community. So in a sense, it was a passion. And I'm still very keen to see a democratic federal Myanmar. Thank you.
Kuntasit and Sean, would you like to add something on how you understand why the Spring Revolution is different from previous democratic uprisings in Myanmar? And what is giving the strength and endurance to the people of Myanmar?
First, the seeds of the discontentment, especially since 1988, have always been there. The failure of the military junta all along to deliver the quality of life to the people. Second, everyone has realized that Burmanization has not been successful. Third, as what General had just mentioned, about 10, 15 years of freedom, you know, in the years at around 2008 onwards. And the fact that Myanmar did join the ASEAN community, and many Myanmar people went to neighboring countries, especially to Thailand and Malaysia, for meetings, for business, for work, for tourism. And they have seen the quality of life, the freedom to lead and to live a life, and they have come back, of course, with the wish that the Myanmar society would be the same. So, when this coup d'etat came, all the wishes and the desire to oppose the military junta came together without any prior arrangements. It just erupted. Because all the Myanmar people, the Burman majority, the Karennis, the Chin, the Shan, and so on, they all have said to one another in their minds, enough and is enough. And it's about time that we oppose, because we want to live in the atmosphere of freedom and good living and so on. So it's a collective undertaking without prior arrangement and design and so on. But everyone has tasted the good quality of life in an open atmosphere. And I think the junta, the Tatmadaw, underestimated the thinking and the wishes of the ordinary people. And they thought that the coup d'etat would be a fait accompli within 24, 28 hours, like every other coup d'etat before that. And like every coup d'etat in neighboring Thailand, in the Philippines or Indonesia. But it's a different Myanmar society together. It's a different set of people together. And Myanmar is relatively a very young country. You know, it's a lot of young people. And young people want to see change. They have the social media, they have the exposure. And repression is no longer the name of the game. And they were, I think, decided that it's about time that they come out and oppose, which is a healthy thing. And I do agree with Janelle that the military junta, Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, should have come to the realization now that after 3 years, the coup d'etat has completely failed. And they are on the losing side. They have to stop the killings and come to the negotiating table. And this is where the international community, the ASEAN member state, the dialogue partners of ASEAN, the UN Secretary General, could come together and send a strong message. And one of the ASEAN member states could organize an inter-Myanmar parties conference in Bangkok or in Kuala Lumpur or in Jakarta. I think the time is appropriate because there is no victory on the part of the military junta. Their days are numbered. I do agree fully.
Thank you, Kun Kasset, and thank you for highlighting the role of the young people and highlighting that it's really about collective decision. It's really about the decision of the people of the Myanmar to basically say enough is enough. And I really appreciate that you have mentioned and highlighted that it's not just about removing the military repression and military oppression, but it's also about removing the Burmanization, removing the oppression of one majority group or oppressing everybody in the name of one majority group. And that what we have now in Myanmar is really extraordinary common understanding between the Burma majority and the ethnic nationalities. And this is something what is a huge game changer in our current situation. Please go ahead.
I think the land of Myanmar as a whole was balkanized from the beginning. And various Burmese kingdoms had tried to control the whole of Myanmar. You know, but they were opposed by the Arakans, by the Shan, by the Mons. So it was all along an unsuccessful attempt, unsuccessful story. Even when the British came to rule, they have not been able to unify the whole of Myanmar. And post-colonialism, the military establishment had been trying and they have failed. It's not only these past 3 years. For the past 70, 75 years, the Burmanization was a total failure. military government was also a total failure. And now the military establishment is on the losing side. The only way out at the moment is to come to the negotiating table, or either they have to go to the Hague, to the Court of Justice, and all of this, and imprisonment.
Let us now go a little bit to the approach of the international players to the Myanmar, and Khun Kasit, I will start with you and with the ASEAN. That the UN, the international community, has delegated responsibility for Myanmar to ASEAN, and nobody has challenged ASEAN centrality, ASEAN primary role in dealing with the Myanmar, and ASEAN has accepted that role willingly. But 3 years of the crimes, of the atrocities, probably over 20,000 people civilians being killed, 3 million of the refugees. And if we look what ASEAN has done, we can say it's a big failure. So what is your explanation? Let's say, what ASEAN policymakers and Thai policymakers, what they didn't get right, what they should understand better, what they should do differently to really fulfill what the international community is expecting from ASEAN?
In the course of 2009, 10, and so on, I was the foreign minister. And I think we were in the midst of the Nagri cyclone, as well as I think the suspended at that time, the 7-point roadmap towards democracy. But all the 9 members of ASEAN has a common sense of purpose, unified position. And together, we, the 9, was able to speak to, at that time, General Thein Sein, the Prime Minister, and I think Banna, the Foreign Minister, that there was some sort of obligation on the part of Myanmar towards the ASEAN community, that without I think hesitation to push Myanmar back to democracy, Myanmar has become a problem for the rest of ASEAN, and it is not right for the rest of ASEAN to shoulder Myanmar around the world, protecting Myanmar, and let the Myanmar continue with a military government. So collectively, the 9 ASEAN were acting as one unit. And then the Myanmar military authority opened up Myanmar for humanitarian and reconstruction assistance post Nagri cyclone. So it was a great achievement. The ASEAN Secretariat even sent a front office in Yangon. And concurrently, every time that we meet together, ASEAN of the 10, in the presence of the representatives of Myanmar, informally, formally, we finally succeeded. The military government under General Thein Sein at that time to put the 7-point roadmap into practice. So we had the release of Aung San Suu Kyi, the writing of the constitution, the referendum, and finally, elections under a democratic constitution. So once upon a time, we were able to act together as one unit. But for the past 3 years, there is no unity inside ASEAN. Somdet Hun Sen of Cambodia has his own idea. The General Prayut Chan-o-cha and the Thai then Foreign Minister, Mr. Don, had another general idea. The Laotian, the Vietnamese, and the Brunei were staying put. Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, or the Philippines could not get a word across to the military junta, and we were not unified or united. And there is no one inside the ASEAN to take the leadership, a president, prime minister, or the sultan, or a foreign minister. It was no longer the good old days of having a leading personality to take up the leadership, to take up the mantle and try to bring everyone in. Thailand has failed completely and even deviated from the 5-point consensus, acting alone for no obvious rational reason or argument, and so on. Indonesia, which should take up the leadership, especially last year, has been too much paying attention to the domestic politics and all of that, and so on. And likewise, Malaysia under Anwar Ibrahim, too much of the domestic things, and there is no guts and determination for the chair of ASEAN to rally everyone to a negotiating or to a meeting table and forge a common position. So it has been the failure of the collective ASEAN leadership. And it's about time that international community take over the mantle, especially the UN Secretary General, and can work with ASEAN. But the international community or the United Nations can no longer leave the responsibility to ASEAN, because the ASEAN community has no will and has no wish and has no leadership.
Bassett, what will be your argument? Let's say that no, let's say we are not in front of the endless Myanmar crisis, but it is possible to finish it quickly if we do something. We, as a international community, do something differently.
About a collective position or message to be conveyed directly to the military junta that their days are numbered and finished. And second, the international community will render support and diplomatic recognition to the NUG and democratic forces and so on. And second, how to do this, to get this collective position. I would like to recall that during the time of Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, a body called Friends of Myanmar, Burma at that time, were being set up at the United Nations headquarters. And during the UN General Assembly session and so on, all the foreign ministers of friendly country, Friends of Burma, did gather under the chairmanship of Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. And I think why not we suggest to the present Secretary General to set up this as sort of an informal gathering at the UN headquarters and get all the key players, you know, the ASEAN members, the major neighboring countries of Myanmar, particularly, I think, India, Bangladesh, and China, and some of the major dialogue partners of ASEAN, particularly the United States, Australia, UK, you know, the EU chair, and so on, and come together with a collective position and tell the Myanmar junta that they have to relinquish power and all of that. See, I think the UN has to come in. And concurrently, one could think about the UN peacekeeping force, like what they used to do inside Cambodia when the Vietnamese were asked to withdraw from Cambodia, the UN interim administration. All of this could be thought about within the UN context and so on. And even to have a sort of a master plan for the returns of all the refugees, including the Rohingyas, to Myanmar. But what it needs is the leadership of the UN Secretary General and whoever is in the chair of the UN Secretary General at that moment and so on.
Kassit, you are experienced diplomat. You have been through your career dealing with probably all the countries which are relevant in the today's Myanmar context. Is there something specific what you would recommend to the NUG and ethnic revolutionary organizations in terms of their own international relations? Let's say what they should do to persuade Thailand, the neighbors, the ASEAN, the rest of the international community that if they want to bring democracy, peace, and development to Myanmar, they need to work with the NUG and ethnic revolutionary organizations and not try again and again to appease SAC.
I think I have suggested to the NUG leadership many times, and also to some of the ethnic minorities leader, the Karen, the Karenni, and so on, that they have to have a sort of a series of diplomatic notes to the various countries, ASEAN and so on, to update the ASEAN and the international community what they have been doing so far, achievements, shortcomings, on the battle, on the ground, social services, administrative services, and all of this, and the progress in terms of the drafting of the new federal democratic constitution. So it's for you, NUG, to reach out with information on the various progresses, with a request for some help and so on. So a constant dissemination of information would be very much needed and of great help. Okay. And second, at the same time, we, from the international NGO could also become a sort of a bridge between the NUG and our respective governments and so on. And I think each one of us has to urge our respective governments to stop hiding behind the ASEAN skirt or curtain and come out in the open and act accordingly. And it's about time that everyone, every government, democratic ones, to tell the junta, no more. No more. No more some sort of informal contact and all of this and so on, just to have a full sanction of not dealing with it. And tell all the ambassadors that were appointed by the junta to take leave. So we need a much more drastic measures to tell the junta that they can no longer hold on to power and their existence on this earth is no longer a valid one. Strong words, strong action.
Kun Kasit, what will be your message to the people of the Myanmar?
My deepest admiration for the guts and determination, the perseverance, the resilience, and the sense of unity, and still the sense of optimism. I wish you, all of them, great success. I am an optimist, and I think our Myanmar democratic friends will be able to reach their objective and targets in a democratic setting. Congratulations in advance from the depth of my heart.